Alright guys, TacticalRab again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. The qualifiers for Major 2 in Boston begin tomorrow, and Dashy will be resigned to the bench for the entirety of the stage, it does seem right now. Octane has given his thoughts though on OpTic fans, or Dashy fans let's say, believing that he should not have been dropped in the first place and needs to be back in the team ASAP or another team based on his recent performance in 8s, implying that probably there's a reason why they dropped him. Very much intrigued your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I'd greatly appreciate it. Let's dive into things today. First of all, on the challenger side has been going crazy. Did want to mention quickly because I think we've broken all the records pretty much so far here this year for the fantasy signups. If you guys want to get involved completely for free, you win $100 if you pick the best team basically. This is my team. It's kind of funny, I didn't even recognize this at the time, but you know, I picked Scrappy of course because, you know, look kind of similar a little bit. I'll have to meet him in person at the event, it'll be good times. Shotzzy, kind of a no-brainer for $5 I think. And then I've gone for Skrapz as well, so we've got Skrapz and Scrappy, which is kind of funny really. And who knows how good Skrapz will be, but I'm banking on Zinni as well. We'll see how it goes. I don't think it's a terrible team, but I'm sure you guys can do much better than this, and feel free to get involved as well. Now, speaking of some players that were formerly on some of these fantasy things, Dave Paddy, Capstall, these guys, even Gravity was in the league last year, and Hicksy was very briefly on that Toronto Ultra team. When he subbed in for one match, I think, up against Florida early on in the season, they have formed a rather scary indeed challengers roster right now, and last night the Elite was going on, so these are just the results so far from the North American side that look like the following, so you guys can see the the rotation done an unbelievable job covering this. So great job to all involved there. But these are the two groups in the North American Challengers. So we've got Fellows team, we've got Parasite's team here. They went 2-0 on the day, 6-3 map counts. He's been getting hyped as well. So this is Johnny, Jimbo, now known as Lau, and Fire. So those guys have been really popping off here. That team we just looked at, they're 1-1. Boston Academy didn't win a map on the day, so kind of dump seed for them. Doug, Krebs, Shorty, and Beans, Coach Josh, of course. But yeah, so that's kind of what's going on there. And also just to mention this, I thought was unfortunate for Doug really going 0-6 on the day, but you know, I guess they live and they learn, and this clip we'll see in a second if Octane was taken during some of these elite matches going on last night. And this I thought was kind of crazy from Parasite, right? He was gassing up his team, and for good reason I thought, and also gassing up himself, right? Because I mean, look at this. Okay, Beans, so how did Beans have a 1.28 and lost all 6 maps? Okay, whatever. Ghosty had a 1.4, Fire 1.26, Parasite a 1.24, and then Rex had the well, the kind of closing out the list here. But yeah, as Haggy says, is this 2013 again, 10 years ago, when Parasite was considered one of the best ARs in the game, and he's dropping a 1.24 again. So you know, cool to see Parasite's redemption arc here. Look, I don't think he's going to get a shot in the CDL or anything, but nonetheless, having him back competing is very cool. And look, there's money to be won down there in challenges, right? And Parasite is straight back in, making the most of this opportunity. Also, just to mention this from the Boston Breach side as we go into the major discussion, because here we go. There's like 7 VIP passes where there's cool stuff you can get, so very few of them left ready to go. This is what the venue looks like. These are the boys who are outside. It's going to be a good one. And yeah, of course, the qualifiers are starting very soon indeed. One of the teams is going to have a different roster. Well, actually, 3 of the teams are going to have different rosters. One of them, though, that wasn't confirmed yet was London. They confirmed it. It's a pretty funny graphic, really. I mean, like, it obviously doesn't look legitimate at all here. Don't know what they're doing with this graphic, but okay, whatever. Skrapz starts. We knew it. It was obvious. Paulx even confirmed this the other week. I don't know why London took so long to confirm, because I think this was the change that we knew longest to go of all of them, and yet even OpTic confirmed their roster after all their drama before London managed to. But yeah, whatever. Skrapz is in, and Paulx is out, of course. I think Zero said on stream last night that he's very excited for this, because Skrapz having the hunger to get back in is kind of, you know, pushing Zero on as well to be even better than he was before. To be honest, like, look, I think this move could actually work out for London. We know that Paulx maybe, you know, okay, good online, his LAN performances haven't always been there. This is now 3 of the, well, 5 players from the FaZe clan team in Black Ops 4, but arguably it's 3 of the 5 that 3, you know, the 3 worst of the 5, right? The FaZe team in Black Ops 4 was Skrapz, Zero, Asim, 3 of which are here, with then Zuma and Cellium closing out the team, and of course, well, Zuma and Cellium, Zuma's no longer playing, Cellium on FaZe, so, you know, it's kind of that team, but not as good as it could be. Nasty rounds out the roster. I actually like this change. I've always thought Skrapz is a very solid player in terms of like the pure slaying role Skrapz can be very good at. I'm sure he's very, you know, excited to grind, and having this opportunity is going to spur him on a bit. It does frustrate me a bit though, I'm not going to lie, just because as much as I like Skrapz and European Call of Duty and stuff like this, there is plenty of other players out there in challenges in Europe and North America that have grinded very hard over the last couple of years to get an opportunity like this, and then Skrapz, having really not played at all, just gets back in off name and friendship value effectively, which look, as I say, I think it can actually improve this team. but it's just a bit frustrating that Skrapz didn't really have to do anything to earn this spot back. He didn't have to grind challenges, or, you know, they didn't want to see him grind a couple of stages in challenges just to see that he's still got what it takes. They just brought him back in anyway. So, okay, the teammates trusted him, the coach believes in him, I think it can work out. But if there's one move that epitomizes kind of friendship league, it's kind of this one, to be honest. So look, hope it works for them, but still just wanted to mention that real quick. And as we say, these are the 4-man rosters they currently have. So Skrapz, Zero, Nasty, and Asim rounding out the team. We'll see if they get better, because they started off looking surprisingly good with the M4 meta. Like, we expected them to be terrible, right? At the start of the season, it was clear. I think even Dashy was saying that there was one team that was by far and away the worst in the league, and all the coaches said it was London. Then they started the league quite well, and then quickly fell off to being pretty bad at the major. So we'll see if this turns them around. It might be a step in the right direction. Asim is gonna, I mean, Asim's been God mode so far, right? He's gonna need to keep that up, but we know with Asim, he has these crazy stages, and then he has a bit of a lackluster stage. So I think Nasty is the man who I would like to see step up again for this upcoming stage. Let's talk about the Dashy stuff then, because of course last night we talked about the 52 kill bomb that Dashy dropped on the map during a set of Pro 8s. This is on Fortress as well, incredibly impressive. And immediately as a result of this, there were a load of posts we saw and a load of people talking, okay, you know, Dashy's got to get back in the league. The guy, you know, FaZe have got to pick him up, Rokkr got to pick him up. We discussed it yesterday, right, which teams might be interested, but some pros don't necessarily agree. And yet, Dashy's in here in 8s, building his relationships with some of these players, such that when they want to make changes, those changes will be looking towards Dashy. And I really hope that he gets on the team for Major 3. I do believe that after Major 2, we will see another round of Rostermania, because after Major 2, it's, you know, getting on February time. You've got to think that with only a few months to go till the World Championship, that's when the teams will really be starting to make changes, because I think more teams were thinking about moves after Major 1. They eventually decided not to, but if things go badly at Major 2 for any of the teams that played bad at Major 1, that's, you know, London again, but certainly a team like Boston, even a Minnesota Rokkr as well, like, you know, Dashy will be in those conversations. Now, we did, of course, see during the off-season that this roster is being floated around, the Dashy to FaZe idea. I believe aBeZy said after the season, though, when they eventually got Slasher, that really Dashy was never a consideration. They wanted Shotzzy, but they never were actually going to get Dashy in the first place, and this team was never really going to be a thing. Now, maybe you could argue that, okay, if Dashy can step into a flex role, I think he is generally more comfortable in those 8s environments when it's less, you know, there's less structure involved. Maybe in a structured system, Dashy doesn't work so well, and maybe OpTic and Rambo felt, you know what, Shotzzy's the guy that needs to go rogue, he's the guy that we need to let off the leash a little bit, and Dashy, therefore, to compensate for that, has to play a bit more structured Call of Duty. I think Dashy plays better when he is allowed to just roam free and slay out hard, but in order for that to happen, there needs to be a very, you know, let's just say fundamental AR to go alongside him to, well, fill those rest of those gaps effectively, kind of like what arguably happened during the Black Ops 4 season when Dashy was at his most effective. But after seeing that 52 kill performance, there was a lot of discussion, okay, Dashy's got to go somewhere, who's going to pick him up, and also from a lot of the OpTic fans, and, you know, Dashy's obviously still very highly regarded, and as a lot of OpTic fans still will support Dashy going forwards, and are still very much a big fan of Dashy, and he's not like he's off OpTic yet, he's still on the bench technically. There is maybe a 1% chance that iLLeY performs badly going into Major 2, and they decide, you know what, let's bring Dashy back. Now, let's be honest here, apparently the internal team dynamics there are not going to be conducive to that at all, but nonetheless, there's a lot of people that said iLLeY should have been dropped, Dashy should have been kept as the main AR. Like, in theory, that makes more sense. If you look at it on paper, that makes more sense. The reality is that Shotzzy was very clear in his kind of discussions after the changes were made that iLLeY was never going to get dropped, and they needed to make a change, and Dashy was the one to go, and that was kind of it seemed like a bit of a no-brainer for the team. A change was necessary, and Dashy was the one to get removed, and it seemed like all parties kind of agreed on that. So there's obviously a reason they've decided to keep iLLeY around, and that he's, you know, arguably survived another roster change, but it's Dashy that's made way, despite the fact that a lot of, you know, fans that would see it differently. Now, Octane kind of does an impression here of these OpTic or Dashy fans that say that Dashy should for sure be kept around, and it's a pretty funny and entertaining impression, to be honest, but I don't think he would be saying this in this voice if he agreed with what these guys were saying.
I cannot believe Afro Gaming has benched Dashy. He shot 52 and 8. Why is nobody paying attention to this?
Oh, they're going for it. They gotta break this. They gotta break this.
Wait, Sam. Why'd you say it like that? Why'd you?
Because that's what OpTic fans sound like.
Get this guy.
Get this guy.
I stayed with you guys.
I, for
Green
one,
Wall strong.
cannot believe you say Alexis should keep iLLeY over Dash. Clearly, he's performing at a higher level.
Alright, wait, I DM'd you guys.
So as I say, right, there's a lot of people that are suggesting that Dashy should either have been in for iLLeY in the first place or should just step into another team. But as Octane's saying there, right, of course he's making up a stereotype of an individual that believes this stuff, but he's not going to be taking the mick out of them if he agrees with that opinion. So effectively what's implied there is that he disagrees with what they are stating about, you know, Dashy being necessary for the starting team and they shouldn't have dropped him, should have kept him over iLLeY, this type of stuff. Kind of implies to me that Dashy is of the belief as well that removing Dashy was probably the way to go and actually makes sense, all things considered. It's always interesting, like, weighing up the opinions between the pros and the community in general, because I think a lot of the community, if we did like a Twitter poll, I think probably most maybe would have said keeping Dashy over iLLeY is the right idea here after making the change. But I think if you polled the pros, they might very well have a different perspective on that. And it does seem like Octane is inclined to agree. So tweet your thoughts in the comments below. I just do wonder where Dashy goes next, because, you know, based on what we've heard about OpTic, it just doesn't seem like that's ever going to be happening again. There's obviously some sadness within the OpTic camp about Dashy moving on, but yeah, he's got to find a good opportunity first to go elsewhere. And if a lot of the pros think maybe as Octane thinks, just because a lot of pros that have played with Dashy, like over the last few years, there's always been concerns and complaints and questions, you know, even back in the modern, you know, okay, let's just start with Black Ops 4, right? Crim6, Karma, TP weren't so happy with Dashy. The year after that, Slasher, Kenny made their thoughts known, especially after the season on teaming with Dashy. Then obviously Envoy, right, even during OpTic Chicago after that season, mentioned work ethic or attitude or stuff like this. There was a problem with the entire team, but also I suppose was a problem with Dashy individually, and now the team's got rid of him again. So I don't think that's going to affect him too much at the end of the day. I think that people realise that Dashy's got this insane ability and, you know, fire under him now, probably more than he ever has. And okay, you could argue you should have had that in the last few months on OpTic, right? But it is what it is. And I think a lot of pros have said, I think aBeZy has made this clear especially, that would you sign a player that's unbelievably good but could have some baggage, or would you get a player that's nowhere near as good but is going to be a good teammate? And I think aBeZy has always said you get the player that's got the baggage but is unbelievably talented, because if you can make it work, you're going to be one of the best teams, if not the best team in the entire world. So I do think some teams will have that philosophy, but even though maybe that philosophy is kind of less prevalent nowadays than it was a few years ago. Also from OpTic Texas here, back to it, they say 4 days until the Major 2 qualifiers. Here's Huke in action, so they're in the setups, they're getting ready to go. Pretty cool to see Huke actually, you know, playing again. Hopefully it works out for him, right, because the last couple of years have been difficult, and yeah, Zeo in business, Scump is there as well. Some nice footage here that I'm sure we're going to see a lot of details on in the process, and yeah, rumour has it at some point we're going to hear the full story behind all this drama, but it might take some time. It might take Dashy to be off OpTic before we really get to see what's going on there. Thought this was kind of funny as well from Shotzzy, actually. He did this is on like the paywalled OpTic Nation thing. They got him to answer a few questions. The only like funny thing I thought he said was he was asked, his first question was, who do you see on the map and you ego chat every single time? And he said Ziddy, hands down, the guy's just dog, and like, you know, use your studs better or something like that is what he actually said. But all the chaos over the last few weeks has distracted a fair little bit from this, which is the power rankings going into Major 2. Of course, the subliners won Major 1, but OpTic have a pretty difficult set of qualifying matches because they play the second place team, the third place team, and the fourth place team, right? So they play Seattle, FaZe, and Toronto over the course of these coming weeks. They also play Boston, they also play Vegas, so not easy matches for OpTic. I suppose the power rankings have to be relatively similar to the results at Major 1, but you know, we've only got a couple of changes, London, Los Angeles, Guerrillas, and OpTic, that the community consensus seems to be that it's not going to change all that much in their performance, but I think I'm more optimistic about OpTic's change than most seem to be. But very much enjoyed your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.